Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on TikTok. Folks, please do send in your comments on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter, and we will do our best to respond to them, to answer any questions that you may have. I hope everybody's doing well tonight, and we've got a lot to talk about. We've only got 1 hour to do it, so we're going to be rushing through all the stuff. But what's on your minds tonight, and what do you want to talk about? One of the things that we do want to talk about, and to start straight away with, of course, is the big Rutherglen and Hamilton Westminster by-election, which is held tomorrow from 7 a.m. in the morning until 10 p.m. at night. Everybody will be voting for their chosen candidate. And it's an important election because it's seen as a bellwether on how well the Scottish National Party is likely to do next year at the British general election. Because, of course, everybody is imagining that Labour are going to push forward and to get back the numbers of votes that they got from that the SNP took from them many years ago. So is this going to be the renaissance of Labour tomorrow, or is the SNP going to edge a win after all? Give us your thoughts on that. Give us your opinions on it. And does it really even matter at the end of the day? Because this particular candidate is only going to be in for about a year at the most, maybe even less if the general election is held next spring. And then it might go back to SNP again. So who knows? Who knows? And by-elections as well are an opportunity for people to vote for something different, or to vote against the people that they've become tired of. Is that going to be what's happening tomorrow in Rutherglen? Let's have a look at just what the figures were at the last election in 2019 in Rutherglen, and of course there was only the usual candidates standing back then. Let's bring up the graphic on that. Ashat Glenn says it's his birthday. Can he get a shout out? Yes, Glenn can. Good for you, Glenn. Here we are in 2019, and the SNP, Margaret Ferrier, got in with 23,775, and Labour was behind on 5,000. So that's not too much of a gap, really, and it's expected that Labour are going to close that very closely tomorrow. And of course, the Conservative and Lib Dems, well, many people will take the opportunity to vote tactically. So you'll probably see the Conservative vote going down and the Liberal Democrat vote going down, as a proportion of those voters will vote for Labour as a tactical vote to try to unseat the SNP. And last time round there was only one smaller candidate standing, and that was the UKIP candidate. They're not standing this time round. Let's in fact see who all is standing, and we do have a list of them all. There's a list. Now, most of those, of course, are just going to pick up a handful of votes. Your independent candidates. The Vote UK, which is actually wanting to rejoin the EU, they'll pick up a handful. The Scottish Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition, I can't see them rounding up enough of their coalition members to be interested, quite frankly. there's an Independence for Scotland party that might take 1 or 2 votes from the SNP. Their interesting point of view is they want to be elected as an abstentionist, would you believe? As an abstentionist. So I suppose that's an honest Scottish National Party there. They're calling themselves Independence for Scotland Party. And really, it's a fight, of course, between the Tories and Labour, and then the other 2 main parties, which is Conservative and Lib Dems. Now, what we would like to see here at A Force for Good is our friend of A Force for Good, Niall Fraser, who's standing for the Scottish Family Party. We'd love to see him beat all of those smaller parties, and especially beat the Greens. That would be absolutely tremendous. And hey, maybe even beating the Liberal Democrats and getting into 4th place. That would be absolutely fantastic and not impossible. Not impossible. But let's hope that he beats all the small ones and the Greens. The Greens really deserve to go down. Okay. Now, I know that he had a hustings, I'm told, last week, and we've got a little video that we'll just play for you just now, just a 1-minute video, and this was after the hustings had finished. Well, it was the roundup at the end where all the candidates had exactly 1 minute to make their case, and let's play Niall's case right here.
Again, you will have heard tonight about a whole range of issues. Net zero, cost of living, COVID, lockdowns, all of that's fine and well and should absolutely be debated. But in the real world, in the practical world, if we cannot defeat the simplest of lies, the most elementary of lies, this sex change lie, then we literally can't go on and fix any other issue. So long as basic truths remain questionable, we'll be forever stuck in the mud, forever going in circles, forever declining as a country, as a nation and as a people. Scotland needs the grown-ups back in charge, not the daft student union politics of the SNP and the Greens. This election I've shown this community that I've got the strength, the courage to stand up for my constituents in any situation, to shield them and their children for this rainbow cult. I will never apologise for standing up and speaking truth to power for this community. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Well said, Niall. That was good. He's a battler and a fighter, and that's what you want. So, folks, A Force for Good doesn't normally recommend parties to vote for, but if you are in Rutherglen and Hamilton West tomorrow and you've got a vote, then Niall's a fantastic person. You could do an awful lot worse than to vote for Niall. Now, I just want to give a shout out to somebody who's going to go down in AFFG history, and that is a man called Kevin Knowles, who is our first ever super chatter on YouTube, and he has donated £10 to A Force for Good via our super chat facility. Thank you, sir. Thank you to Kevin for that. That's absolutely amazing stuff, and I was going to be talking about it. Here we go. £10 super chat. Thank you, sir. Donated at 3 minutes past 7. You'll go down in history as our first super chatter. And if you'd like to send us, sir, if you'd like to send us your your address, we will put a free copy of this magazine in the post to you tomorrow. Normally retailing at £4.50. You can get this for free if you send your address to contact@aforceforgood.uk. Thank you very much. Let's have everybody saying thank you, Kevin, in the comments. Brilliant. So, more on our monetization on YouTube, which is a big thing for us, by the way. This only happened 2 days ago. More about that in a minute, but let's concentrate for now on the Rutherglen by-election. But let's also say hello to some folks. Derek was first in tonight, saying hello to Alistair and AFFG supporters around the world. I hope everyone is doing well, and good to see the latest Union Heart. Gust even to see the latest Union Heart. A great read. The magazine to which he is referring. Hello to Debbie. Good evening to you. And to Slim, who says hello all. And to Alan Dawes. Good evening everyone. And Harry. Hope everyone is having a good evening. They're having an even better evening now that they're watching the fantastic, the one and only Good Evening Britain. And saying hello to fellow Unionists throughout the country. Hello to Derek as well. And to Kevin, from whom we have heard very graciously already. And to Stuart, good evening, he says, from rainy Elgin. And it's a rainy Glasgow. It's a rainy night in Glasgow tonight. Good evening to Eric. Alan says the new magazine is excellent. I'll talk about the new magazine in a minute as well. So pleased with it. 16 pages. And hello to Kat. This is amazing. Look at that. What a tremendous chap. Hello to Stephen. And Christopher. And Nicholas Stubborn says, does Rishi Sunak know something about the SNP Sturgeon Operation Branch Form? Sounds like it. That is because he made a wee joke at her expense today at the Tory party conference when he said that she thought she was going to go down as one of Scotland's greatest politicians. But he said it looks like she's going to go down for something completely different. Which was something amusing anyway. Stuart wants Labour to win, as anything is better than the SNP. Catherine says good evening and happy birthday to Glenn. And Stephen thinks what a lot of people have been suggesting, that it'll be a low turnout because the SNP voters will not turn out as they're disappointed with Humza Yousaf. Very possibly. Eric says, what's the alignment of the independent candidates? I only know the alignment of one of the independent candidates, and he is simply interested in football and having some kind of football league, which I couldn't really go into, but he wants to change around the British football system in some way. But other than their alignment as far as the big question on everybody's lips of whether they want to stay in or out the UK, don't know. I'd always stay clear of people, the independent candidates like that, because they will if they're ever elected, they get immediately co-opted, especially at the local level anyway. They're immediately co-opted by one side or the other. They find themselves having to choose sides half the time, certainly in local politics, maybe not so much Westminster politics. Scotland Scorpion says Niall for First Minister. I can't disagree with that. Scotland Scorpion says, I can't believe I agree with everything Niall stands for. This is a first. Let's put up Niall, the front page of Niall's brochure here that we've got, that was passed to us, where he sums up what he stands for. There we go. Promoting the family, supporting parents, free speech, no more being afraid to speak your mind, sort out schools and eliminate the violence therein, no trans ideology in schools, and protect children from extreme sex education. Those are the two sort of outlying points that Niall's become quite well known for. And at the bottom there, love life, helping all to flourish at every stage of life. There you go. Straightforward. Okay. Christopher says that was a brilliant speech by Niall. Loved the disagreeing, nodding SNP donkey next to him. Yeah. Stephen says, well done, Kevin, for the super chat. And Slim says, thanks, Kevin. Now, what's all that about then? As does Scotland Scorpion and Catherine. And so what that's about is we are now monetised on YouTube. Now that's actually quite big. What it means is you get 1 pence for every 1,000 views of a video, and you think, well, that's can't add up at the end of the day. Well, if you get 100,000 views on one video, that's £1,000 coming your way. If you get I'm not going to try to do the mental calculation in my head, but it adds up. It adds up quickly, and we're getting several thousand views a month, and so that's a few pennies that are going to be coming our way. And so yeah, it's worthwhile. It's definitely worthwhile. But one of the major things as well is it allows super chats. So when you're doing live videos, say you're out and about and you're getting thousands and thousands of views at an event, then people can donate money directly via YouTube without you having to ask them to go to your website or to go to another link. They just press the little $sign. There's a little at the bottom of the chat column on YouTube. There's a little $sign in a box. You just press that. It opens up a super chat. You can type in your message. You can type in the money that you want to donate, and you can type in the color of your message, and it'll come out clearly in the chat to the side of your YouTube video, and we'll notice it. We'll give you a shout out. We'll give you a call out, and we'll even send you a magazine if you contact us in other ways and ask for one. And this is our new magazine. It's 16 pages. It goes free to every monthly donor who has requested to be put on the magazine list. And it gets distributed free at our street stalls. And people can give a donation for it if they want at our street stalls, but they can also just take it for free. And it's also available for sale on our website at £4.50. And it was a good 2 months of work. And it's the Coronation edition, and it's specifically about Scotland and the monarchy. And I learned so much researching this, some of which is easily enough to fill a second magazine, which we'll no doubt do in future. But for now, this is good for getting along with, and we've called it King and Country. And so we start off with describing what the monarch is all about. What's the role of the monarch? And then here we reprint once again this amazing family tree, which takes it from Robert the Bruce right down to Prince William. Then we talk about the matter of sovereignty. So that's quite a political discussion that we have on that page there, talking about this relationship between the sovereignty of the people and the sovereignty of the crown. And then here we're talking again history and the concept of the royal style and how kings and queens are numbered. Here we talk about the relationship of Christianity to the British monarchy and the absolute relevance of it. The key element of it really is the Christian element, which is often hidden, but we bring it out here. And that's always brought to the fore in the British national anthem, which is in fact, as we say here, it's actually a prayer. It's not like most national anthems, which are jingoistic appeals to abstract concepts of national greatness. It's actually a prayer put to music. And then the centre pages, which I'm so pleased about, a graphic designer really delivered on this. It's basically a poster, the Scottish roots of the British royal family, tracing by picture from Robert the Bruce up here, right down to King Charles, all his Scottish ancestry in a direct line right back to Robert the Bruce. So that's a really fantastic educational piece, that. So pleased with it. You won't find that. I've never seen that anywhere else. And I've been studying these things for years, and I've been collecting things for years. I've never seen it laid out like that, ever, in all my years. A brilliant educational document. And here we talk about the extent to which Scotland has always been a monarchy, even during the British Civil War, when Cromwell executed Charles I. That didn't stop the Scots from immediately proclaiming his son to be the king of all Great Britain and crowning him as such at Scone Palace. And then here we speak more about going into the heritage prior to Bruce. And we also dedicate the issue to our friend Thomas Mace Archer Mills, who we had on the programme as a guest. He was the founder of the British Monarchist League, the Monarchist Society, founder of the British Monarchist Society, and he was a tireless supporter of the UK. We interviewed him a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, he passed away, just a young man in his mid-40s, in January of this year. So we dedicate this issue to him. And then the 2 pages here, how the monarchy delivers a profit and how it's actually funded. And then policies to celebrate the monarchy that a government could enact. Some clever thinking went into that page. And then the final page has a picture of our coronation celebration in George Square back on Coronation Day, the 6th of May 2023. So tremendous issue, that. So pleased with it. So pleased with it. And I do thank everybody who helped make that happen. It really is something special. So if you don't have a copy, please do get yourself a copy at our shop. We'll put up the address for the shop. Paul says he's already passed his latest edition of Union Heart to somebody else. Good. Well, any of our Union supporters who want additional copies need only ask us, and we'll send them free of charge for distribution to colleagues. Stephen said, would tactical voting help in Rutherglen tomorrow? Well, it depends, of course, who you tactically want to support. Catherine says, thanks, I got my excellent Union Heart yesterday. I'm going to frame the centre pages. Fantastic. It certainly would. Fits a frame. It would, yeah. Screenshot. Harry says, as long as Unionist parties get the hold in the by-election, that's all that matters to me. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised then, Harry. Well, Scotland Scorpion says that her friend thinks a vote for a smaller party is a waste. Well, it just depends how you see life, I suppose. I don't personally think that a vote for a fringe party is a waste if you believe in the fringe party. I stood for a fringe party many years ago, several times, and I would say to that, when people said that to me, I would say, well, no, the waste is voting for that big party to get the same old, if you actually want to make a difference in the sense of standing up for what you believe in, then vote for what you do believe in, even if that's only going to return a smaller number of votes. But people no doubt will have their own opinions on those things. Stephen says the colours are fantastic, aren't they just? That's an amazing photograph that we took. That was when the London-based Republic group came up from England to be rude to the King and Queen when they visited St Giles back on the 5th of July. We had about 20 folk there with our flags and with these posters, and we helped to balance out their republicanism. If it wasn't for us, they would have dominated the scene completely. Kat says the SNP reached a new low when they disrespected the Princess Royal in Aberdeen recently. What that was just a few days ago. Shona Robinson, who is some, I don't know what she is in the SNP, some MSP anyway, and her job was to be at the same event as Princess Anne, but she kept Princess Anne waiting for 40 minutes, and then when Shona Robinson gave her speech, she didn't even mention Princess Anne or thank her in any way, which was a real bad move, really. Childish, as they say, and sums up the SNP, because they think it's all about them. They're that sort of person that doesn't want to give anybody else the credit because, oh, look at me, I'm elected. Fringe parties can turn into big parties. Absolutely. Absolutely they can. And they can make a big, big difference to things. So, oh, I meant to tell you, look at the prize we've got for tonight's competition. A box of caramel truffles from a famous sweet maker, Charbonneau and Walker. Milk, sea salt, caramel truffles. Okay, that's going out to the person who can answer our question tonight. And answers, please, to contact@aforceforgood.uk. The first person to send their answer to our question, which we'll ask in 5 or 10 minutes, the first person will receive this box winging its way to them tomorrow in the post. Fantastic. Stick around for that. Oh yeah, the referendum this month. It was going to be on, what was it, the 19th of October? But this time last year there was a big fanfare that the referendum was going to be held, and even Sturgeon said it was going to be held. Just proves don't trust the SNP because, well, according to Miss Stubborn here, they are Sinn Féin in disguise. Don't expect anything else from them. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. And so let's just do on this day in British history. Then I want to talk about the freedom of speech issue that's turned up with GBNews recently. Yes, on this day in British history, on the 4th of October 2009. The Special Operations Executive, that's the SOE, memorial was unveiled by the Duke of Wellington in London outside Lambeth Palace to commemorate the men and women, those who survived and those who did not, who fought for the SOE in Europe during World War II. And these were kind of undercover type special agent people, the Special Operations Executive. And I took some photographs a few years ago when I was down there. Let's bring them up and let's have a look at the memorial. It's very nice. That's the unveiling ceremony in 2009. That's the Duke of Wellington there, the old boy. And that's Lambeth Palace in the background. And that's Violette Szabo, who's looking out over the Thames. And let's have a look at my photographs there. I'm really pleased with that photograph, by the way. That's a great pic, I have to say, even though I took it myself. Looking out pensively, thoughtfully over the Thames. Violette Szabo was posthumously awarded the George Cross and the Croix de Guerre, and she was one of 117 SOE agents who did not survive. And I think they chose her because, one, she was well known, because a film had been made about her. It was called Carve Her Name with Pride, that many of us will seen. It was one of these 1950s films, and it was starring Virginia McKenna, and that was the film Carve Her Name with Pride. So people knew who she was, but also she lived in that area of Lambeth, in Stockwell Road. She grew up there, so it was appropriate to use her visage for this memorial. Let's have a look at the other photographs. There you go, some writing there telling you about it, and in fact there at the bottom it says their names are carved with pride. That's a reference to the film, which had brought their presence into the public domain several years after the end of World War II. Okay. So a closer one, a very lifelike sculpture by Karen Newman. Okay, so that was on this day in British history, the SOE Memorial unveiled. I'll ask a wee question about that in a few minutes for this amazing little box of truffles. Who would not want that gracing their dinner table? Fantastic. Yeah. Stuart says, true British hero. Alexander says, at the end of the day, getting rid of Mark Stein was the start of GBNews' downfall. He wonders if Neil Oliver will probably be next. Well, that would be a great pity if Neil Oliver happened to go. Let's talk about GB News then, because today we learned that two of the presenters, Lawrence Fox and Calvin Robinson, have been fired. Not just suspended, but actually fired. And that's quite remarkable, really. And Dan Wootton remains suspended. And it wouldn't be that remarkable were it not for the fact that GB News like to actually call themselves the home of free speech. And so you wonder, well, what if they really are the home of free speech, then what are they doing firing presenters for having their say? And what this came down to was Dan Wootton had been interviewing Lawrence Fox, but must be about 10 days ago now, and Lawrence Fox had made a rather rude comment about a woman. And hell broke loose. all hell broke loose. Rather than just having a simple apology, I shouldn't have been crude in that manner. Instead of that, it was as if, the world was falling down or something like that. And I thought, this is a bit odd, because you've got all these people on the BBC who are extremely crude and rude and politically offensive and this, that and the next thing, and nobody ever asks them to get suspended. I mean, you had the famous one when Joe Brand was talking about throwing acid in Nigel Farage's face. I mean, that was seriously off. Yet nothing happened to her. She didn't get suspended or disinvited from any other programmes on the BBC or anything like that. So what's going on? And Calvin Robinson at the time actually summed it up very well, I thought. And he basically said, and I'll read his tweet here. He goes, he put it in perspective. We've seen this week the mainstream media and both Labour and Conservative politicians have called for an end to an entire channel because they do not like that we offer a different perspective. No one is naive enough to believe this is about Lawrence's crass language or Dan Wootton's response. These are the excuses. It's not about them, it's about the entire GB News project. GB News tries to be a voice to the silent majority. There are many people in the UK who have felt ignored by the metropolitan liberal elite for a long time, dismissed by politicians and legacy media. Brexit proved that. We offer a home to the media homeless, and the establishment resent us for it. They want to control the narrative. They cannot do that if we offer an alternative perspective. And he goes on to say that does not always mean that we get it right. But what has been happening surprisingly and disappointingly is how quickly so-called friends and colleagues have thrown Lawrence under the bus. And he's talking there about the lack of what you might call solidarity for his point of view. And we were reminded, as were others, of when Gary Lineker came under fire from his employers, the BBC, for something that he had said. Now, exactly what it was escapes me, but lots of people in the BBC stood up in solidarity with him and said, we're not going to continue to work unless you ensure to keep him on the roll. Make sure you don't suspend him, or you'll have to suspend all of us. And of course what happened was the BBC backed down, and Gary Lineker is still in place for a nice sum of money. So people looked at GB News and said, well, where's the solidarity among the GB News presenters? Who's coming out in support of Lawrence and Dan after they got suspended? Nobody. Except Calvin Robinson. He came out and he said, I'm not going to do my programme so long as Lawrence is suspended. So what we learned today is the upshot of that was GB News fired both Lawrence and Dan. And there's been precious little solidarity shown for them among the rest of the GB News staff. So that's a bit of a pity, but it also speaks to the fact that, to be frank, GB News and the BBC are two completely different kettles of fish, unfortunately. You see, it's easy to show solidarity to somebody if you work for the BBC, because it's like one of these government institutions where you're not really going to get fired. You withdrawing your labour is not going to bring down the BBC. However, one person or two or three key people in GB News withdrawing their labour is going to bring down GB News. The whole channel will end and nobody will have a job. So the idea of showing solidarity is all fine and well, and I'm all for it. But it's a lot easier to show solidarity with a BBC colleague than it is to show solidarity with a small, struggling organisation. It's very difficult if you work for them to make a fuss. It's the same with nationalised industries. It's easy for people who work for nationalised industries to go on strike when the taxpayer's paying your wage, It's a lot harder for a little employees in a private firm to go on strike when the consequence of going on strike means that the firm's probably going to shut up shop. So I understand why the solidarity hasn't been shown, even though I don't agree with it. I would like to have seen them coming out and supporting Lawrence and supporting Calvin and supporting Dan Wootton, and it is unfortunate, but I think a lot of people don't understand the extent to which GBNews is kept afloat. I mean, it makes a massive loss. This article appeared back in March. GBNews suffers 31 million loss in first year of broadcasting. Accounts up to May 22 showed that it made a 30.7 million loss on revenues of 3.6 million. The majority of its revenue came from advertising, followed by digital and sponsorship income. However, this was dwarfed by 12.7 million in wages and other staff costs for its 175 employees. Well, I'm afraid nothing can continue like that if you're making a 30.7 million loss and your revenues are only 3.6 million. So I don't know how it stays. I don't know how it stays on the screen. It must just have a very wealthy donor that's just prepared to fund such a loss-making venture. And it's making a loss, of course, because the stinking corporations don't want to advertise with it. The woke corporations, the corporations that advertise everywhere else, don't want to advertise with GBNews. And that's a shame. You know, that's a damn shame, as they say. It really is. But it's just where we are. It's where we are at the moment. Now, I haven't asked the question yet. Let me ask the question just now. The question is that on this day, and send your answers please to contact@aforceforgood.uk. Send your answers to that to answer this question. The SOE Memorial was opened on this day, and it's decorated by a bust of Violette Szabo. And what is the name? What is the name of the 1950s war film which immortalised the exploits of Violette Szabo? What's the name of the film? Send your answers, folks, to contact@aforceforgood.uk. The name of the film that immortalised Violette Szabo, the 1950s war film. And the first person with the right answer will get these caramel truffles winging their way to them tomorrow. Derek says he's surprised that GBNews is still going. Indeed, it's on a very sugary peg, and that will not help the fact that it seems to be awfully keen, perhaps for understandable reasons, to appease the authorities and to get rid of the unwoke, because certainly Calvin Robinson and Lawrence Fox were far from politically correct in today's situation. That's right. Alan says GBNews just can't attract the advertising, even though they're desperate to get ad revenue, because the left keep jumping on the bandwagon and trying to pull the corporations down that do advertise with them. And of course, Lawrence Fox also got raided by the police today. That's another story, isn't it? As well as losing his job on the same day. So he's had a bad day. Unfortunately. But knowing him, he will bounce back. He's not one to give up. So one thing that we can do, of course, in all of this is just programs like this. People who are able and willing to broadcast and to get the word out in other ways. But of course, as Alexander Cameron points out, Ofcom want to regulate the internet, and the new online speech bill that's coming in is probably not going to be particularly helpful to people like ourselves, but we do not give in. We do not give in. Indeed, top prizes. Top prizes every week. And it is, I can't believe they sacked Calvin Robinson for the crime of simply showing solidarity, because I read out his message there. He didn't defame his employers in any way. In fact, to the extent that he spoke about them, he was simply trying to hold them to a higher aspiration, hold them to their words themselves as the home of free speech. So firing him was a nasty move. But look at all the people, Tories and Labour, who are coming out against GBNews. That woman Caroline Noakes, who calls herself a conservative, attacking a conservative channel, didn't make any sense. Lost his job and raided by the police. That's a coincidence. A coincidence, or intentional. Who knows? And people are pretending to be woke just to be hip. That's right. Just to get a job as well in some cases. Christopher says, people are so woke now that they even trash bans appearing at the Conservative Party conference on social media. Well, Kevin puts some context on the matter. He says, GBNews is owned by Sir Paul Marshall, a hedge fund manager who has a company which has a combined asset of billions. A large company which has an asset of billions. Yes, it would have to be somebody who had assets in the billions if you're going to be regularly funding a £30 million a year loss. If somebody wants to give £30 million to a force for good to transform our Wednesday night programme, then believe me, we could spend the money, and we could spend it well. One of the things we'd ensure is that everybody in Scotland get posted one of these, along with a special pull-out poster talking about the Scottish roots of the royal family, just so that we didn't hear them go, but the royal family's English. Nuh-uh. It's literally descended from Robert the Bruce through that line. And there's the man there is the man that brought it all together. King James VI of Great Britain. Son of Mary, Queen of Scots, when he became King also of England and then declared himself King of Great Britain. He changed the frame, as they say. That's what we could do with 30 million. And it wouldn't even cost 30 million. It would only be a few $100,000 to do that. Alan says, have you seen Mayor Tusi on YouTube? Yes, I know who you mean. Maybe a good guest for the show. Yeah, we'll write that down. See if he's interested. I know he's in with the Lawrence Fox crowd. Always a sensible chap. So, yeah. Derek Hart says some of the presenters are in Reform UK, including Nigel Farage. People are talking about Nigel Farage as if he might be the next leader of the a leader of the Conservative Party. In fact, somebody said on Twitter today that what was going to happen was that the Conservatives will lose the next general election. They'll go into meltdown. They might split, or they might see Farage as the person that can bring them back. And so Farage will come in and he'll be basically elected leader of the Conservatives overwhelmingly, and then he'll get elected at the general election in 2029 as the leader of the Conservative Party. That would be a turn up for the books. It really would. It might even get some people voting Conservative, I think. That would be very interesting. Hi Derek, thanks for the support here. In fact, Calvin Robinson hinted at that today. He'd put out a video and he hinted that what's going on here with Farage being so welcomed at the Conservative Party conference. And he also alluded to, and he didn't mention any names, of people who are associated with GBNews who are trying to buy the Daily Telegraph. And therefore, was this cleansing of GBNews, was it something to do with the fact that this wealthy person was wanting to buy the Telegraph? And he tried to relate that into how Farage would perhaps then become promoted by the Telegraph as the Conservative candidate to vote for, etc., etc. It was very, very interesting, but who knows what goes on in the minds of the wealthy, who at the end of the day are running the show, whether we like it or not. Talking of which, I again want to thank our Super Chat supporter. Anybody else want to fire in a £1 or £2 Super Chat, please do so, and we will be so grateful for you, even if you just want to experiment with it. There's also Super Thanks, and what that is in our 900 videos, which we now have on YouTube, every single one now has a little Super Thanks button below it, which is a little S in the middle of a heart. S meaning a dollar sign in the middle of a heart in a little box below every single video that we have, all 900 of them. And if you watch the video and you say, that was brilliant, I want to thank the guy for that, click on it and you can make an immediate donation. 900 videos we've put out since May 2013. The bulk of them being in the last 4 years. Stuart thinks it's a good idea, the Tories getting involved with Nigel. And Alan says the Tories can't afford to lose votes to smaller parties, so it's maybe a way of keeping him on side. He did seem awfully happy, I must say, whenever he was interviewed at the Tory party conference. Normally they would have run a mile from him, but they did seem to be rather friendly with him, I have to say. Yeah, and by the way, look what I discovered in my change today. The first time ever I have a King Charles coin, a 50p coin with the King's head in it. That's the first coin that I've seen in my life, was in my change today, with King Charles's head. Has anybody else seen any of these King Charles coins going around? There you go. Just thought I'd mention that. No, Nigel is not in the UKIP party anymore. He's not in any party at the moment. Stuart says he has a Paddington Bear 50p. Yeah, there's a few of them around. Scotland Scorpion is yet to be graced with a King Charles coin. It's quite interesting, this one, because on the back of it, it's a very British design. It's got 4 shields. Now 2 of them are the English Lions. One is the Irish Harp. One of them is the Lion Rampant. And then between the shields, there's a thistle a shamrock, a rose, and a leek. So it's quite a... And in the middle there's a crown. So that's a very British design, filling it all in there. Oh, Debbie corrects us. Nigel is part of the Reform Party. Right, okay. And we're making plans for Nigel, as the song says. AC would definitely vote for the Tories under Nigel. Davy says the Irish came from Egypt. Well, that's interesting that you should say that, Davy, because we even mention that here in our latest magazine when we talk about an enduring throne, and we point out the extent to which King James VI stated in Parliament that he was descended from this chap who's really legendary and mythical, but who was meant to be around 300 years before Christ. And James VI was informed by the historiography of John of Fordun, who wrote the Chronicle of the Scottish Nation, and in it he recounts that the Pharaoh and his wife fled Egypt to Spain after the Pharaoh was, quote, swallowed up in the Red Sea while pursuing the children of Israel, and that one of their sons, Hyber, from which we get Hibernian, landed in Ireland. And so that's the genesis, according to the ancient chronicles, of the Scots and the Irish being descended from the people in the what we now know as the Holy Land. Interesting element of ancient history, which was repeated and believed very seriously for many years, and which in the 20th century didn't get believed so much, but nevertheless it's all the writings are there for those who want to follow that particular point of view, which we analyse in that first column there. Good. Now, it's almost the top of the hour, and I'm wondering if we have a winner of our competition. Kevin says he's going to start checking his coins now. Good idea. Good idea. Well, we do have a winner. Now, I asked the question, on this day in British history, the memorial to the SOE was unveiled. Violette Szabo is on that memorial. A film was made about her in 1958, a war film. And what was the name of the war film? And the name of the war film was Carve Her Name with Pride. And the winner is Alan Dawes. Congratulations, Alan. We'll be sending you this tomorrow. Well done, Alan. Good. I'm just looking at the comments here. Yeah, congratulations to Alan Dawes. Well done, Alan. Scotland Scorpion says, congrats, Alan, as does Eric. As does Stuart. As does Catherine. Alan says they'll go down a treat. Good. Okay, folks, it's top of the hour. It's 8 o'clock. It's been a good wee programme tonight. Good news for us getting our channel monetised. That'll bring in we'll never rely upon YouTube. That would be like building your house on sand. We never rely upon YouTube, but it'll be a few extra pennies each month, no doubt, which always helps. And if anybody's got 30 million to give a budding new channel, then please do think of A Force for Good Productions Limited. Thank you. Scotland Scorpion says she enjoyed the show. Great show as usual. Catherine likes it. Thanks, Derek. We're asked, when is the next street stall? We're having one at the end of October. More about that nearer the time. Scotland Scorpion. Good. Well, let's leave the last word to Alan. Excellent show as always. Have a good evening all. Big shout out as well to Kevin, who is our first ever super chatter. Will go down in AFFG YouTube history. And just checking we haven't got any other super chatters this evening. Nope, Kevin's the one. Good stuff. Okay, folks, just remains for me to say we'll be back next week. In the meantime, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next time.